Happy Tuesday. Welcome back to Kevin Toll Reads. So today I have a book review. I finished book 17 in the Matthew Scudder series, A Drop of the Hard Stuff by Lawrence Block. This is the final full-length novel in this series. There is a short story collection and a novella left, and that is all of the printed material on Matthew Scudder by Lawrence Block. And so I'm almost done with that long-term goal. This is an interesting take. I enjoyed this book. I was going to do kind of a faceless book review. I had surgery yesterday, and so I didn't want so that's why the hood and cloak and mysterious stuff. But I wanted to get this out because not only was the surgery successful and what it was, its goal, but also I was successful in the fact that I was there for many hours and I got a lot of reading done. So that's a good thing. And so this book was published in 2011. The summary of this book is really interesting. Mick and Matt sit down for a drink in a bar, water, obviously. And then you get this story within a story, and it's a throwback story to when Scudder is coming up on a year of sobriety. And so it takes place many, many, many years ago. You also learn some cool facts. But the premise of it really is the fact that back in his time when he was coming up on a year of sobriety, he was doing the PI thing. One of these friends of his, Jack Ellery, who was in the program, he goes around and he's going through the 12 steps, and he's on step 8 where he's making amends, and he's going around meeting people and making amends, and Jack ends up dead. And it's under mysterious circumstances. So Matt's doing the PI thing for a friend of Jack's, and as he's uncovering the folks that he went to make amends with, he's learning some interesting things, and people keep dying, and he's trying to figure out why. And so it was interesting. At the same time, he's dating Jan at the time, and that's part of the overarching story. And so you got that, and then you have Jim Faber, who's his AA sponsor. That's going on as well. I didn't think I was going to enjoy the book because we're going back to where I had made mention on one of the book reviews of this series. Like, I was kind of past the whole sobriety and AA thing. It had its place in the first several books, but I was kind of past that. I wanted to see his character, but it's such an ingrained thing, and I'm always a sucker for a story within a story type setup, and so I actually enjoyed it. So probably get into a little bit of spoilers here. So if you're wanting to put this on the list, you don't want any spoilers, that I understand here. So what I enjoyed the story within a story thing. Mick Ballou sits down, Matt's talking, and we also got another confirmation. If you remember in the previous book, All the Flowers Are Dying, book 16, Elaine says she thinks there's more to Mick and Kristen Hollander. Kristen Hollander was one of the characters in book 15 and 16 that was a target for that psychotic killer, and Mick actually goes over in both the books and house sits. And in book 16, towards the end, Elaine's like, yeah, I think there's more to those two than what you think. And we get confirmation in this book that they're married. And I thought that was really interesting. Obviously, you have the sobriety. So I mentioned the sobriety discussions and meetings, and Matt going to meetings all hours of the day and having lots of conversations with Jim Faber, who is still alive at this point. And you get a really, really closer and deep dive look at the relationship. And I actually enjoyed it. I thought Jim was an interesting character. It's nice to get a little more in depth than you get in the little brief instances throughout the stories of this series. I thought that was really cool. Obviously Jan's here, and if you've read the series, you know what I mean. Pretty serious thing happens with Jan in book 11. I'm gonna leave it at that. They do end up breaking up, which, that's got. If you've read the series, that's going to happen. But you get to see a little more in depth in that relationship, and I thought that was pretty cool. You have an unknown killer. People are dying. There's no TJ. There's no Elaine. Obviously, we're not to that timeline. We're back in the, the Marvel universe, so to speak, or the Scudder universe. And so there's none of those characters have come into his life at this point. there's some interesting characters that you do meet, as he's doing the investigation and he's going and looking at some of these people that Ellery made amends with, and you get to see some interesting characters. I really like Scooter Williams. I thought he's this kind of pothead character, and I found him funny. So there's a couple excerpts from the book I want to mention. At the very end of the story, when they kind of flash back into current time, I thought it was really cool where Mick is referring to himself and Scudder as two old dinosaurs. I thought that was pretty interesting. There was one excerpt, though, that really sticks with me, is when we're talking about, Ellery, and he's making, he's going through step 8, making amends, and it's what precipitates these murders and everyone dying. Scudder mentions, and he says, and I quote, "When I write my own 8th step, Estrelita Rivera's name will be near the top, though what I can ever do in way of amends is beyond me." And I thought that was really, really heartfelt, because she is the girl that was killed by one of his stray bullets that ricocheted when he was in the bar off duty, and he went after a guy that held the bar up, and he drew his gun and shot at the guy, the burglar, and one of the bullets took a funny hop, as he likes to call it, and it struck her and killed her. And that was the catalyst that he says both his removal from the force, the NYPD, that was the catalyst of it. And it was also the catalyst of him going into a deep, dark depression and drinking, and ultimately his separation and divorce from Anita. And so I find that excerpt really profound in this story, in this series. So in terms of like dislikes, the ending was a little anticlimactic, in the sense, like, you got to finally know who the killer is. How Matt goes about handling it makes sense, but at the same time, like, it just wasn't like I was kind of wanting like some action or a duel. I wanted something, and that wasn't there. The ending is wrapped up, but at the same time, like, it was kind of anticlimactic for me, in my opinion. So in terms of overall rating, 3.9. I think it was pretty solid. It was a good read. I wouldn't say it was a great read. It was a good read. Definitely not as high as the last 2 books, but it was solid. When in retrospect, looking back at the story, I enjoyed it. It was an easy read. I enjoyed it. It was a throwback story. So, I have some trepidations going into the novella and the collection of short stories. We'll see how that goes, but I think I'm just melancholic because I know this is coming to an end. But it's one of my goals, so it's inevitable. So I hope you're having a great day. That's a review, a drop of the hard stuff, book number 17, the Matthew Scudder series, 3.9 out of 5. Hope you have a great day, and I will talk to you later. Thanks.